back, everybody, to The Creative Moment, Season 9, Episode 7. Dante Bullhauer, Jamie Bullhauer, your usual hosts. And, we're back in the same studio for the first time in a while. So, let's go ahead and get into it. Oh, that's pretty good.
That was pretty good.
All right, so today we are talking about jealousy in the creative world. Something that I have experienced. You have probably experienced. Something we all have dealt with in some capacity, and warranted or unwarranted for the most part. It's kind of a mix of both. So you just read a book about that covered a lot of topics that we talk about on this podcast, so no need to write any more creative books. Just listen to our podcast and do what you will with that information. But it had a section on kind of being jealous, or parts of it were about jealousy.
So the book was "We Need Your Art" by Amy McNee, and there's a lot of cool parts in there. There's a part about the research that says how beneficial physically and mentally and spiritually just any art is. Even mental health, doing better when you go to one culture event a year. So that part was really cool. There's a part about certain emotions that block your creativity. And procrastination is one of them. Maybe we'll talk about that. But one of them was jealousy. And sometimes that's why you should read books and go out of your comfort zone sometimes in media, because then it just sometimes somebody says something in a different way and you're like, oh. So in the book, it said one of the things that keeps us from creating is being jealous of somebody. Now, the main component of that section, though, wasn't that you just get rid of jealousy. So it was like, well, figure out, why are you feeling that? Why, what is the trigger? What's going on? Why are you actually procrastinating? When you fell so in love with this idea and you just, all those things. And there was... confidence and other emotions too. But the jealousy one was just really interesting because she shared that for her, she was jealous of a person, but it really wasn't of their art. It was because, in a sense, they had more readers, they had a bigger audience, and that is what she was actually jealous. And honestly, for me, that's like, oh yeah, I kind of have that same feeling or idea, especially when I write more classic poetic forms and stuff. I'm just like, how come this doesn't get, any traction where this poem does? And I feel like, and it just was one of those aha moments that you get from another source.
Yeah, interesting. I think it's also very potent when you subjectively or objectively, when you think your work is better than the person that gets more attention, more fame, or whatever, or you think that you're doing more, you're working harder,
you're doing working harder. Yeah, it's like I put it, classic forms are hard.
Yeah, I mean, there are some things I put a lot of work into. Like, for example, when I scroll TikTok and I see, I try to post stuff on TikTok, but now with their music copyright stuff. Anyway, I'll post a TikTok that I worked really hard on, and it'll get 100 likes or whatever. And then I'll just see some stupid phone video about how this person's just talking on her phone about how the person in front of her at Chipotle crashed out or something. And I'll get millions and millions of likes and stuff. I'm like, what? Why is their content to a general audience better than mine or gets more recognition than my stuff? And that's where a lot of my jealousy stems from. I'm pretty confident in my own work where I don't compare it to other people's just in terms of what's better, I guess. I just think, oh, wow, it's a really cool shot. They did a really good job there, whatever. But the recognition, support, all that stuff, that is still a point where I get a little jealous, where I'm like, why do they get to have thousands and thousands of followers seemingly overnight well, I'm just sitting here happy that I got 2 more followers today or whatever.
Well, I think social media feeds into that jealousy aspect because it honestly was the first tool to measure, in a sense, how popular you are. Like you,
in a tangible sense,
in a measurable way, it's like this gets this many. And there are people who will delete stuff if they don't get, and that's a whole nother psychological. But it is built to kind of foster a little bit of that jealousy. I think because I think every artist. At the end of the day, money excluded, because that is nice. We'd like to, but every artist just wants to know that their picture is seen, their poem is read, their book is read, that it is some small fabric of the audience. And social media tells you, in a sense, that the phone video, 100 million people put that into their life.
Yeah. Yep. And I think there's a good and bad parts about jealousy, or you can use it for good and bad, I guess. It can be a motivator, 100%. I mean, I want to get to where they are. I want to get this many followers, or I want to get the access that this person has to this tournament or whatever. It can be used as a motivator. Also, like, there's a lot of the bad sides where you just kind of stop creating, like I assume that book talks about, where you just kind of shut down, and then most of the time, it's somewhat rare now, but most of the time when I get like really kind of jealous, it just is like, oh, well, I start making excuses. Oh, they did this, or they got lucky here, or this, that, the other, whatever. And that can be a real roadblock to creativity and kind of complacency. You just think, oh, well, if I had what they had, whether it's gear or opportunities or whatever, then I'd be able to be where they are. And then you just kind of wallow in this jealous, complacent kind of zone. Yeah,
and that's what Amy for all of them, and there's some others, is like to psychologically aspect of it is, why are you feeling that? What is the factor that I'm not jealous of Stephen King. I'm a fan of Stephen King, so I know that, but there is other artists and poets and some of them just, even in the jam, in your head it gets to it. I'm like, you could tell they like that her poem or something, which isn't a fact. It's not true. It just, and so again, but what are you trying to do? What is your motivation as a creative? And when she said just they wanted readers also. She wanted people to read her novel, her books. And it's like, so she wasn't actually truly jealous of this person. She was jealous of that she was at a point that she wanted to be, and then turn that into motivation. Like, well, I have to finish this book. I have to do, if I really want readers, I have to give them something to read. Yeah. And so that part was, it just odd for me, because I do get that at times. And like you said, the work part, because we know how hard we work. We kind of forget that the other people are jealous of work hard too. It just seems... It's
just the complete opposite. The consumer doesn't see what the artist does. We as artists just throw away all that, they don't work hard for their photos. They didn't work hard for this. Like, we completely just kind of flip onto the consumer side instead of, they probably worked really hard to understand why they got to this point of success. And I also think... with jealousy, I think there's a certain level of, like you said, you weren't jealous of Stephen King. I'm not jealous, so to speak, of Peter McKinnon or Peter Legge. I mean, I would aspire to be them, and I am jealous that they have like all these cool opportunities, but I think there's a certain level of like attainability that you get more jealous when it's people 1, 2, 3 steps above you on the ladder than it is people that are 100 steps up the ladder. Like Peter McKinnon has 4 or 5 million subscribers on YouTube. I'm not really jealous of that, but the people that have 200 more than me, I'm like, that's where I start the excuse making and things like that. And so I think that's something to kind of be cognizant of when you just look at work is like, okay, if I'm jealous of this person, we might not be as like far difference in the rungs in the ladder as maybe I think we are, or like, or something like that. Or maybe our success is just defined in different ways. Maybe they could be jealous of me in some spots, whether it's the amount of, or like, the access you get or the money you make, whatever. That's just, that's another story. But the way you edit or the way you, take photos, things like that. There could be a million people that are jealous of you that you're also jealous of, things like that. So there's a certain level of kind of relativity that I think is kind of just interesting to be aware of with that.
Yeah, and you on social media, if you really wanted to see everybody's follower, you could, but we create our own networks. As we look at the things that are on Instagram or the aspects of people liking a poem or something like that. Social media is also a big stream. So when you post at that moment, it's kind of who's there to actually see it, and got to understand that sometimes it's just what timing it is.
My Instagram post yesterday got 35 likes, and I was really happy with the photos. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, it was concert photography, and I love shooting concert, and it got 2 likes on Facebook.
Oh, for the band Hemingway?
Yeah.
Or the band called?
A band called Hemingway.
A band, which actually is really good. I have been listening to them on Spotify.
I was listening to them yesterday while I was editing them.
I was like, hey, all right.
Yeah, like, that's something where I'm just like, and then I see, no offense, Talbot Brothers, sometimes you don't post that great photos. Photos like that they post or something from other photographers that, just followed them around to this show or that show or whatever. I'm like, 200 likes? Real? Like, can a brother get a like out here? Like, seriously? And so, I don't know. I think it is a sign that you are working hard to be jealous of other people. Well, I don't know. I think you feel the pride that you put in your work, and when it doesn't get consumed the same or received the same as some other people that you consider yourself in that network with, that's where the biggest kind of pain point resonates with you.
And then you already mentioned about making excuses, and that's what it can then stop you from being creative, because you're just like, well, I can't match them. And at the heart of the book is the idea that we create for the muse, the inspiration that we have, that we, there's a reason that your spirit gets ignited for an idea. Now there's work involved, and so, but you're being disrespectful even to yourself if you let procrastination, envy, self-confidence, and all that get in your way of fulfilling, obviously, something that's important to you. But we do. We can let that just fester. We can, and other things. And it's interesting. Jealousy is, and you feel like nobody, but we already talked about it, nobody sees the work that you do or how much I care about this. And I think that's a little bit of the deep feed of jealousy, because it can be anybody. It just be anybody, like you said, a couple of rungs ahead of you, and it's just, well,
yeah.
And like you said, we are consumers too. We kind of forget that, they probably stayed up all night, getting those photos done in time, or writing that poem while taking care of their kids and working hard and stuff. So I don't know. Jealousy was an interesting,
a funny kind of anecdote. So there was a kind of aspiring photographer in the area that is, I think, 3 or 4 years younger than me. And when I was just kind of like, I think this was 2 years ago. So 2 years out of high school, the business was starting to like kind of take shape a little bit. And one of my friends in the creative space was mentoring this kid while he was still in high school, and that kid was just kind of trashing on me, and it was like, he doesn't work hard, he just gets like all these opportunities that were handed to him, whatever. And that friend told me, and I'm like, all right, like, cool, whatever. I was jealous of people too in high school, whatever.
Yeah.
And so now I know this kid, and we're kind of like, acquaintances. I talk to him when I see him and stuff. And he told me, like, last year at a football game, how jealous he was of me before. He was like, yeah, I was jealous that you got to go to all these games. And I realized how exhausting and hardworking you have to be to go to all those games. I'm like, yeah. And so there's just a funny part that you turn off kind of almost all the other emotions in your brain when you get, because jealousy stems from comparison.
Yeah.
And that, classic line, comparison is a thief of joy. You don't, like, that jealousy part just turns off all the other aspects of your brain. All you're thinking about is, what do they do that I'm not, or what am I doing that they are? All those different kind of comparisons. And it just leads to this just draining feeling that, like, honestly, now I just don't even have time to be jealous of other people. Like, I'm on the hamster wheel. And so I just thought that was just a funny kind of thing, because we do turn that off a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It's like,
and sometimes you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
Like,
and he didn't. I mean,
Yeah.
he just didn't know until
Yeah.
he actually started doing it. It's like, yeah, going to like 3 softball games and a volleyball game all in one day it's not just, sunshine and rainbows out here.
Yeah. So a little story time, and then we'll be done. So that there's that newest poetic form, the Catalor, for the Gleam. It's called the Gleam Journal. Anyway, so I introduced that to some people in my network before, and getting my first poems accepted by them took until like issue 4, maybe. Like, I got rejected. They gave me feedback that was really cool about it. It was like, this is a specific form. Well, that poet, her first time writing it, gets accepted. But I happen to, every issue they do a reading on a Zoom, and so people can, it's a little celebration. It's kind of cool. But she got up to read, and before she read, she actually said, I just would like to say thank you to Jamie for showing me this poetic form. I really love it. And I wasn't jealous, but it was kind of like, man, but it's
I get a kickback for that.
But it is also that point we talked about before, that if we give our art, if we give and help people, and we should celebrate their success. Everybody can be successful, and it just was kind of cool. But my first instinct was like, really, first attempt, and it took me like 4 times to finally get one in to this magazine done correctly. But it's, our art connects. Yes, sometimes it feels like we're not appreciated, but at the end of the day, you gotta be proud of the things that you do, and to a degree, almost anybody really there's a little bit of luck, or like the outliers, this weird, type of thing. So jealousy. It's interesting.
Over anything, just don't let negative emotions, whatever they are,
stop you from creating.
Yeah.
And don't procrastinate. That was another one. That was
So I have an interesting theory on that. We can talk about that maybe next time. Because I saw an interesting kind of quote about it. But anyway, with that, that was The Creative Moment, Season 9, Episode 7. Catch us wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. We have video on Spotify, so you can watch us on Spotify. And with that, we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.